Hey, how's it going? It is so great to see you here for lesson one of microbiology. That's tiny biology, little things. And we're going to learn about a few little things today and what they have in common and how they're different. We're going to learn about eukaryotes, prokaryotes, and viruses. Lesson one. What is our curriculum objective? I.e., what is the thing we're trying to learn today? Wait, have I spent enough time saying hello? Hello, hello to everyone out there. You know who you are. I miss seeing you. Gonna see you again one day, but this will have to do in the interim. Back to the science. We're going to be describing the anatomy, that means the shape, and morphology, that means the formation of various groups of organisms: eukaryotes, prokaryotes, and viruses. So let's start with the first one, eukaryotes. What's a eukaryote? A eukaryote is a organism with membrane-bound organelles and a nucleus that can reproduce themselves. So they can reproduce themselves and they have membrane-bound organelles and a nucleus. That means they have things like a mitochondria with a membrane around them. That means they have a chloroplast with a membrane around them, a double membrane actually for both of those. And there's also the nucleus itself, DNA surrounded by a membrane. So you can imagine these things are pretty advanced and they're also bigger than bacteria, which don't have a nucleus, but I'm going to come back to that. So what do we include in this? We include protists like malaria. That is a little organism that basically gives you malaria. It lives in you and it lives in mosquitoes, and the mosquitoes carry it from one person to another. It actually needs both a mosquito and a human to complete its life cycle. But this little tiny thing that causes so much misery around the world is small. It's one single cell, and it's a protist. Also, fungi, microscopic fungi, like the ones that cause athlete's foot, and algae. These are all eukaryotes. The way I like to think of a eukaryote, if you have a nucleus, eukaryote. What? Okay. And what else? They're parasites, but they can also be helpful. There are some eukaryotes fungi that help us to make cheese. That blue stuff in blue cheese is actually a fungus, which I like. It gives it a sharp taste. Some people not so crazy about it, but I'm a fan. Parasite means something that hurts another organism or feeds off of it, but doesn't actually get hurt. Or doesn't actually kill the organism. So that's the secret. Because then you can bleed it for the rest of your life. A mosquito would obviously be an example of a parasite. Prokaryotes. Prokaryotes are organisms with no membrane-bound organelles or nucleus that can reproduce themselves. So the thing about prokaryotes is they can reproduce. Now, we don't usually call them prokaryotes. We call them bacteria, okay? And an example would be the Streptococcus bacteria. It can give you strep throat, which isn't that great. Strep throat, I'm sure you've had it before. Oh, actually, I'm not sure you've had it before, but if you have had it before, you'd know. It's the thing where you get such a painful throat you can't even swallow. I remember I got strep throat once on the first day of Christmas vacation, and guess what? I was cured on the last day of Christmas vacation. That wasn't a great experience. And in the interim, all I could do was take ice cubes and melt them and hope that they would cool my painful, painful throat. But not all bacteria are harmful. There's helpful bacteria, like lactobacillus, that turn delicious milk into even more delicious yogurt. So that's a prokaryote. Now the thing about this, we gotta drill down on this. What do we see? We see that they have no membrane-bound organelles. Now there's a membrane on the outside of a bacteria, a prokaryote, but on the inside, everything's just floating around. The DNA is just all floating around, but they have a metabolism, which means they can eat food, produce energy, they can move around, they can respond to the environment, and most importantly, they can build other copies of themselves, which means reproduce. And the next thing, which is technically not alive, can't do that. Viruses. They're organisms without, that should say, membrane organelles and a nucleus that can't reproduce themselves. I will fix this PowerPoint when I post it, but that's super wrong. Viruses do not have membrane-bound organelles. They don't have a nucleus. In fact, all they are is just a chunk of DNA wrapped in a coat that allows them to attack or stick to specific cells. Now, you've looked over here. Do I really need to give you an example of a virus these days? Do I? Okay, fine. COVID. There's an example of a virus. They can't eat or grow. It's only a piece of DNA telling how to make more virus. Must have a living host to reproduce. So viruses have to infect something. Let's go back to COVID. COVID, this particular virus, is adapted to attach to cells that are located in our upper and lower respiratory tract. So that means everywhere from our throat right down into our lungs. And that's why we call it a respiratory tract infection. The virus attacks these cells, injects the DNA into the cells, and then the cells become little virus factories producing more virus and dying in the process. So you can imagine that there's a lot of cellular destruction coming out of viruses, and that's certainly how they do a lot of their damage. Now we're done. But it doesn't mean we're done for good. Please come back for the next video. It's going to be just as awesome as this one. I can promise you that. Have a great day. Peace out, buddies.